Hello student, welcome back. So in this video we are going to talk about Australia. It's about the native people of Australia, their history, how they come to Australia, from where they come, and after that we will talk about the geography of Australia, and then the coming of the European in Australia and their interaction with the native people. All right, and how later the Europeans they established their own country in Australia, and how the government got developed and how the economic development was there in Australia. All right, so our topic is the Australia. Now so here the native people of the Australia, okay, they are the Aborigines. Now these Aborigines, they are not if we talk about their history, so they come over this continent of Australia over 40,000 years ago. And from where they come? They come from New Guinea. Okay. Now, so they come from New Guinea, which was connected to Australia by land bridge during that time. Now, if we talk about the native tradition, in their tradition, what was their thinking? That they are saying that they did not come from anybody, anywhere. Okay, they are always there in Australia. Okay, and that is why they considered this past centuries as the dream time. All right. Now, in the late 18th century, there were about 350 to 750 native communities that were living in Australia, and each communities they have their own language. All right, even today there are 200 of these languages that are spoken by the native people. Okay, so there is a Torres Strait Islanders, now these are the largest group of native people, and they are living in the north. Now if we talk about these Torres Strait Islanders, these Aborigines, they have their own that they are saying that they did not come from the New Guinea, they come from somewhere else. Okay, even they have a different race as compared to the other Aborigines in Australia. All right, because they belong to different race. Now at present, okay, so if we talk about in 2005, that time the population was counted of these Aborigines, there were about 2.4% of they make 2.4% of the Australian population, of the total Australian population. All right, now now if we talk about Australia, Australia is sparsely populated. That means there is not concentration of population at a particular area. The population is sparsely populated. Mostly you will find the towns and cities along the coast, where the British had arrived first in 1770. तो वहीं पे जो आपको सारे जो शहर वगैरह मिलेंगे. ठीक है. Now in the center of this Australia there is a arid desert. That is why the people they are living close to the coast. Now, next our topic is the European they reach Australia. Now, if we talk about these European people, the first people of the European who see this continent, they were Dutch people. So 1606 में उन्होंने देखा है. So Dutch people, they see this continent for the first time. Then in 1642, here in this time, Tasman lands on the island of that were there in the near the Australia continent, and that island came to be known as Tasmania. And this island later came to be known as Tasmania. All right. Then 1770. Now in this year, James Cook, he reached Botany Bay, and this bay later named as New South Wales. All right. So in 1788, the British, they make the Penal Colony was formed by the British, and later the Sydney was founded. Here James Cook. Okay. Now, if we talk about the story of interaction of the European people with the Aborigines, that means native people of Australia, it is quite similar with the story of interaction of European with the American people, American native people of America. Same तरह की story है तकरीबन, ठीक है. But if we talk about here in Australia, the European, they came 300 years later, because 300 साल पहले वो वहाँ पे चले गए थे in America. Okay, 300 साल बाद यहाँ पे आए हैं Australia, this continent. All right. Now, in the initial report, starting में जब James Cook he reached here, तो उस टाइम बोला जाता कि the people, the natives, they were very friendly with the captain Cook and his crew. All right. But later this Captain Cook, that is James Cook, he was killed by the native, but not by the native of Australia, but by the natives of Hawaii Island. All right. But the British, when they heard about this rumor, so they started taking these native people in a negative way. Okay. So they have a very sharp reversal of feeling on the part of the British. All right. So single incident of this nature, like the death of the Captain Cook, they were used by the Britishers to colonize these people. They say that these people, they are very violent, so that is why they justify that we have colonized these people to make them civilized. Okay, that is their saying. Now, if we look back into the treatment of the natives by the European people, that is very, you can say, sad. All right. Now, in this 19th and 20th century, nearly 90% of the natives, they die because they got infection to the germs by the exposure of the natives. क्योंकि these European, they bring germs, and these native, they were not immune to these germs. So that is why 90% of these people, they died because of the germs that were brought by the Europeans to this new world. All right. Even they lost their land, they lose their resources because they have occupied by the European. Even they lost the battle against the settler also. All right, that is European. Now there was an experiment like what these European countries they used to do, like in Brazil, they started sending the Portuguese convict there. Okay, but that idea of sending convict to Brazil was withdrawal because the native of Brazil, ठीक है, they were very much provoked by the violent behavior of the European and they started revolting. That means they started fighting against these European people. All right, so the British they abandoned the same practice. Even they have done this in America also, because when America was not independent country, what the British was doing, the British they were sending the convict or the people who were not following the their church, okay, those who are revolting against the king, वो जो सारे इंग्लिशमैन हैं उनको वो बंदी बना के एक तरह के वो जो कैदी हैं उनको यहाँ पे अमेरिका में छोड़ आते थे. ऑलराइट, बट व्हेन अमेरिका बिकेम इंडिपेंडेंट सो दे अबैंडन दिस सेम प्रैक्टिस. नाउ दे स्टार्टेड सेंडिंग दीज कॉन्विक्ट फ्रॉम द इंग्लैंड टू ऑस्ट्रेलिया, क्योंकि ऑस्ट्रेलिया के बारे में उनको पता लग गया. नाउ हियर व्हाट हैपेंड, सो यू कैन सी द मोस्ट ऑफ द अर्ली सेटलर इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया दे वर कॉन्विक्ट, वो कैदी थे. Okay, who had been deported from England. Now, when they used to come to Australia, जब तक उनकी जेल की टर्म है तब तक वो जेल में रहते थे. After that, they were left free. They were allowed to live as a free man, but in Australia only. ठीक है, और उनकी एक condition थी that you will not come back to England. Okay, this was the condition of British people, that these convicts they will not come back to England. All right. So what these convicts they started doing, obviously they started capturing the land from the native people and they started doing cultivation. All right, in the next topic we will talk about the development of Australia. Now here we will talk about step by step, like in 1850 so self-government was granted to the Australian colonies. All right, that means they became independent from the England control. So this happened in 1850. Now, in 1851, Chinese started migrating, Chinese coolie immigration, because these Chinese they were a very good worker. Okay, so the Australian people they need the workers, so they started importing Chinese from the Asia. Okay, now from 1851 to 1961 there was a gold rush. That means the European they started coming to Australia to find gold so that they can become rich by finding the gold. Okay, तो ये टाइम जो है वो गोल्ड रश का है. Then in 1901 during this time the Federation of Australia was formed with the 6 states. Because these 6 states they combined together to form a federation. So these 6 states, they formed the federation. Now in 1911, the capital of Australia was formed, that is Canberra. So this was the capital that was formed in 1911. Then from 1948 to 1975, the Europeans, they started coming to Australia. That means European people, they started coming to Australia because obviously in Europe they have a less land, so the population was growing in Europe. So the population, because of this, the lot of population in Europe, the people, they started coming to Australia so that they can live in open land with lot of space. ऑलराइट, तो ये भी कारण है कि 2 मिलियन माइग्रेट जो है यूरोपियन माइग्रेट होगी, तो तकरीबन 2 मिलियन यूरोपियन दे माइग्रेट टू ऑस्ट्रेलिया. Okay, now if we talk about the economic development in Australia, now here they developed vast sheep farms, they were developed, and later mining station was developed, but they were developed over a long period of time and with a very hard work, much labor was needed. All right, then vineyards and then wheat farming was developed in Australia, and these sheep farm हो गए. So sheep farms, mining station, then vineyards, and then wheat farming. These are the basic of Australian economy. That means Australia, they are getting the money from these things. Okay, so this is from the basis of country prosperity. यही कारण है कि ये प्रॉस्पर हो पाया. Now if we talk about the capital of Australia, that is Canberra. It was formed in 1911. So they choose a place, the meeting place of all the states, and this meeting place, that is capital, it was first named as wool wheat gold. इसका नाम ये रखा गया है, wool wheat gold. Okay, but later it was named as Canberra, and this Canberra word is derived from the native word, that is Canberra. ठीक है जी, तो ये जो नेटिव वर्ड है उसकी इन्होंने ट्रांसलेट करके कैम्बारा से कैनबरा कर दिया. ऑलराइट, कैम्बरा का मतलब है मीटिंग प्लेस. ऑलराइट, नाउ so the Chinese immigrant, they provide cheap labor as in California. So now in the farm, in the mining, in the sheep farm. The Australian, they were employing the native people to work in these farm, but the work was very difficult. It was not easy for them, so it was just like a slavery for the natives. ठीक है, but they were not good in work. So later the Chinese immigrant, they started coming because they provided cheap labor. They started coming in this Australia, but the white people, they became very uneasy क्योंकि वो totally dependent हो गए on these non-white people. All right, so what they did, so this led both the country like USA and Australian government to ban the Chinese immigrant, क्योंकि उनको लगता था कि ये इनकी ज़्यादा पॉपुलेशन होगी, so they will overtake them. Okay, so till 1974, जहाँ तक जो है 1974 तक इनके मन में ये फियर ही था, डर था, दैट द नॉन वाइट पीपल दे विल कम इन ग्रेट नंबर टू ऑस्ट्रेलिया. सो द गवर्नमेंट हैव मेड सच पॉलिसीज अप टिल 1974 so that these people they cannot come to Australia. All right. Next we will talk about the winds of change, कि अभी जो इनकी जो थिंकिंग है अबाउट द नेटिव्स, उसके बारे में थोड़ा चेंज आएगा. ठीक है, तो वो जो चेंज है वो किसके कारण आया? इट हैपेंड इन 1968. Now in 1968 there was the lecture by anthropologist W.E.H. Stanner. तो इसने जो लेक्चर है दैट वाज टाइटल्ड एज, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट वाज entitled as द ग्रेट ऑस्ट्रेलियन साइलेंस. Now in this he was criticizing the historian for not speaking about aborigines. All right, so this anthropologist, ये जो इसका लेक्चर था, that is the great Australian silence, he talked about the silence of historian about the aborigines, that why they did not write about these aborigines people. All right. Now so from 1970 the Australian people all over the world, even there was eagerness to understand the native, but it was not from the point of view of anthropologist क्यूरोसिटीज. ठीक है, कि जो एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट ने बोला कि आप इसके बारे में पढ़ो, बट देयर वाज स्टडी अबाउट द नेटिव बिकॉज दे वांटेड टू नो अबाउट दीज कम्युनिटीज दोज हु आर हैविंग डिस्टेंट कल्चर. इनका कल्चर बड़ा डिफरेंट था, देयर यूनिक वे ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग द नेचर एंड क्लाइमेट. तो इनका क्लाइमेट और नेचर को समझने का जो नज़रिया है वो थोड़ा अलग था दूसरे लोगों से. दैट इज़ वाई द पीपल दे वांटेड टू स्टडी दीज नेटिव पीपल. नाउ विद द सेंस ऑफ कम्युनिटी विच हैड वास्ट बॉडीज ऑफ स्टोरीज, these people they have lot of stories and their textile, their painting and even the carving skill. Okay, because of this, because everybody wanted to understand and they wanted to record their these things, and they were getting respect from their distinct cultures. All right. Next there was a writer Henry Reynolds. Now Henry Reynolds, he wrote a book. The title of the book is Why Weren't We Told? So this is the title of the book, in which he condemned the practice of writing Australian history from as though it has begun with the कैप्टन कुक डिस्कवरी। ठीक है, क्योंकि जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया की हिस्ट्री लिखी जाती थी वो कैप्टन कुक, जो जेम्स कुक ने डिस्कवर किया ऑस्ट्रेलिया, उससे ही शुरुआत होती थी कि कैप्टन कुक ने डिस्कवर किया, देन दे स्टार्टेड settling over Australia. But there was no reference of these aboriginal people, that means the native people. So that is why Henry Renault, he is condemning, he is criticizing the historian that why did not write about these people who are the original inhabitant of this people, this country, that is Australia. So after that, since then the Department of Universities, they started studying about native culture, galleries of art, there also the native art has been added, even museum, उसमें भी बड़े बड़े कमरे बनाए गए ताकि जो इनकी नेटिव की इमेजिनेटिव कल्चर है या इनका जो नेचर है उसको एक्सप्लेन किया जाए. So the museum, they got bigger, all right, and even the native, they started writing their own histories. So this helped the native culture to preserve. यही कारण है कि इनका जो native culture है वो preserve हो पाया, otherwise it would have got forgotten or we have got lost of their culture. ठीक है, नहीं तो हम ये जो culture है इनको गवा लेते, क्योंकि इन writers की एक तरह की पहल है कि इनका जो culture है native people का of Australia उनको बचा सके, otherwise it would have lost. Now from 1974, multiculturalism. So this policy was adopted by the Australian government. Under this policy, they gave equal respect to the native culture, to the different culture of the immigrants that are coming to Australia from Southeast Asia, yeah, from Asia. That means they started giving respect to the non-white people and their culture and their festivals. All right. So Australia had no treaties with the native about formalizing the takeover of the land by the European. All right. And even the government of Australia, they termed the land of Australia as terra nullius. Now the meaning of terra nullius means कि this land of Australia belonged to nobody. All right, not even to European, not even to other people. So later the two important decisions were taken by the Australian government. पहला उनका क्या decision है? To recognize that the native people had strong historic bond with the land which was sacred to them and which should be respected. Second उनका decision था that while the past act could not be undone, जो उन्होंने उनके साथ बुरा बर्ताव किया वो तो हम उसको नहीं ठीक कर सकते, देयर शुड बी अ पब्लिक अपॉलॉजी. लेकिन हम क्या है उनसे एक तरह की अपॉलॉजी जो है उन लोगों से हम मांग सकते हैं फॉर द इनजस्टिस डन टू द चिल्ड्रन इन एन अटेम्प्ट टू कीप वाइट एंड colored people apart. All right. So that means the Australian government, they started respecting this native people, their attachment to land. इनकी जो sacred land है अभी भी है ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, तो वहाँ पे भी जो आम लोग हैं, they are tourists, they are not allowed to go over there. Even the white people, they are not allowed to go over there because the sacred land is for the natives only, for the aborigines only. Okay. Second उन्होंने क्या किया, that we will say sorry to these native people because what they have done, they have started taking the children, the mixed race children, because when the white man they got in contact with the native woman, so there was a mixed race children's. So the that time the government they do not want that these children should go into the hand of the natives only. Okay, so they wanted to get back these childrens. Okay, so उसमें क्या किया उन्होंने, जो बच्चे हैं वो उनकी माँ जो मदर्स है उनसे छीन लिए थे। ठीक है, उस टाइम तो उन्होंने कर लिया, बट लेटर दे रिग्रेट दिस, उनको लगा कि हमने जो भी कुछ किया वो गलत किया। सो दैट इज़ वाई ऑन 26